She spilled champagne on a Mafia king, and somehow that single accident became the first crack in an empire built on fear. Have you ever felt invisible in a room full of people who seemed richer, louder, and more important than you? That was Evelyn Harper on a rainy night in Chicago, standing beneath crystal chandeliers at her cousin's engagement party, gripping a glass she didn't even want. She was just a quiet accountant in a borrowed dress, trying not to be noticed. Then she turned too fast. Champagne splashed across Cole Mercer's black suit and the whole room went silent. Not because of the stain, but because nobody touched Cole Mercer and walked away unchanged. Stay with this story because it isn't just about danger or forbidden love. It's about power, fear, and the woman who refused to disappear. Like this video comment where you're watching from, and let's begin. The room stayed silent long after Evelyn Harper disappeared through the mansion doors, and Cole Mercer kept watching the empty space she left behind, as if the air itself had changed shape around her. Outside, Chicago rain fell in silver sheets over the Gold Coast. Evelyn hurried down the stone steps of the Belmont mansion with her borrowed dress clinging to her knees and her heart punching hard against her ribs. Behind her, the party still glowed through tall windows. Music floated out soft and expensive, the kind of music played for people who never had to check their bank accounts before ordering dinner. She reached the sidewalk and stopped beneath the awning, breathing in the cold, wet air like she had just escaped a locked room. Her mother's voice followed her through the open door. "Evelyn." Evelyn closed her eyes for half a second before turning around. Ruth Harper came down the steps with one hand holding up the hem of her navy dress. Her face was tight, not angry exactly, but frightened in that polished way mothers got when they were trying to keep a family from becoming a story. "Do you understand what just happened in there?" Ruth asked. "I spilled champagne," Evelyn said. "It was dramatic, yes, but I don't think anyone died." Ruth glanced back toward the doorway, then lowered her voice. That man was Cole Mercer. Evelyn waited. The name meant nothing to her except that everyone had reacted to it like a gun had been set on the table. "Should I know who that is?" Ruth's lips parted. For once, she looked genuinely speechless. "Evelyn, his family owns Mercer Holdings, construction shipping private security property all over the city. His father was Arthur Mercer." "That still sounds like a business article I would skip." Ruth stepped closer. Rain gathered on the ends of her carefully styled hair. "People do not cross the Mercers." Evelyn looked past her mother through the open mansion doors. Inside the chandelier, light was too bright. Faces turned away quickly when she looked at them. Madison stood near the foyer, sparkling in white. Her engagement ring lifted near her chest as if even the diamond wanted to listen. Evelyn felt heat climb her neck. "I didn't cross him. I bumped into him." Men like that don't care about the difference. But he had cared. That was the strange part. Cole Mercer had not yelled. He had not humiliated her. He had looked at her with those dark, steady eyes and smiled like she had said the first honest thing he had heard all night. That was more unsettling than anger. Evelyn wrapped her arms around herself. "I'm going home." Ruth sighed, and for a moment her fear softened into exhaustion. "Evie, I only wanted you to try. Madison's friends, her fiancé's family, these are good connections. For Madison, for you too." Evelyn almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Mom, those people looked through me until I became a disaster. That's not a connection. That's a warning." Ruth had no answer for that. A rideshare pulled up at the curb. Evelyn got in before her mother could say another word. As the car moved away, she looked back once. The mansion shrank behind rain and glass, glowing like a world she had never belonged to. Inside the car, her phone buzzed. Madison. Then Madison again. Then a text. "You have no idea what you just did." Evelyn stared at the screen until it went dark. The driver glanced at her through the mirror. "Rough party?" Evelyn leaned her head against the cold window. You could say that. Her apartment in Logan Square was on the third floor of a brick building with a front door that stuck in the winter and radiators that screamed before they worked. By the time she got inside, her heels were wet. Her hair had fallen loose, and her cat Milo was sitting on the kitchen counter like a disappointed landlord. Yes, she told him, dropping her purse on a chair. I embarrassed us publicly. Thank you for your concern. Milo blinked. Evelyn kicked off her heels and padded into the small kitchen. The apartment was quiet, familiar, and imperfect in ways that comforted her. A stack of library books leaned beside the couch. A basil plant sat on the windowsill, stubbornly alive despite the Chicago cold. Her laptop waited open on the table, the spreadsheet from Friday still glowing with columns of numbers she trusted more than people. She changed into sweatpants and an old Northwestern sweatshirt, then stood in front of the bathroom mirror with makeup smudged beneath her eyes. She looked like herself again. Small, tired, ordinary, safe. Except she could still feel the weight of Cole Mercer's gaze on her, as if he had followed her home without moving an inch. She turned off the light. The next morning came gray and unforgiving. Rain had turned to wet snow, the kind that melted on sidewalks and left everything looking bruised. Evelyn woke to Milo pawing at her hair and her phone vibrating against the nightstand. Madison again. This time Evelyn answered. You left? Madison said without hello. Good morning to you too. Do you know how many people asked me about you after you left? Evelyn sat up, rubbing one eye. I'm guessing more than the usual none. This isn't funny. It's a little funny. No, Evelyn, it's not. Cole Mercer doesn't just notice people. The way Madison said his name made Evelyn's stomach tighten. Not romantic, not impressed, afraid. Evelyn swung her feet to the floor. What exactly does that mean? There was a pause on the line. Madison's voice dropped. It means he is not just some rich guy. His father was tied to unions, ports, judges, city contracts, people who disappeared from conversations, and sometimes from Chicago entirely. Nobody ever proved enough, but everybody knows enough. Evelyn looked toward her window. A bus hissed at the stop below. A man in a brown coat hurried across the street holding a paper cup against his chest. The world looked normal, which somehow made Madison's words feel more unreal. And Cole cleaned it up. That's what people say. He made it respectable. Mercer Holdings gives money to hospitals and museums now. He wears better suits. He smiles for cameras. But people are still scared of him. Evelyn remembered the hallway going silent. Maybe people like being dramatic. Evie. There it was, the voice Madison used when she was about to say something cruel and call it honesty. You're sweet, you're smart, but you don't know how rooms like that work. Men like Cole Mercer don't look at women like us unless they want something. Women like us. Evelyn looked around her apartment at the chipped mug near the sink. The discounted flowers she had bought herself 3 days ago. The mail stacked under a magnet shaped like a lemon. Madison. He asked my name. He didn't propose a merger. I'm serious. So am I. But after they hung up, Evelyn sat very still. She told herself she was not afraid. Then she checked the lock on her door. At 8:30, she walked into Baines and Holt Financial Services with her hair pulled into a low bun, coffee in one hand, laptop bag in the other. The office occupied 2 floors of a narrow downtown building that smelled faintly of toner-burnt coffee and ambition. It was not glamorous, but it made sense to her. Numbers came in messy, and she made them clean. Accounts drifted out of line, and she pulled them back. In a world full of people pretending ledgers confessed when you knew how to ask. Harper, her boss, called before she had even reached her desk. Evelyn turned. Graham Voss stood outside his glass office with a phone pressed to his chest. His tie was already crooked. That meant he had been losing an argument for at least 20 minutes. Did you reconcile the Kessler account I sent it Friday night? I don't have it. You replied with thanks. He frowned as if gratitude was something he would never do voluntarily. Send it again. Evelyn looked at him for one quiet second. Of course. She sat down, opened her email, and forwarded the same file with the same subject line. Across the room, two analysts talked loudly about a client dinner. No one asked if she wanted coffee. No one noticed the damp ends of her hair or the fact that her hands were still cold from the train. That was the strange comfort of work. Invisibility had structure here. By lunch, Madison's warning had faded into the rhythm of spreadsheets and bank statements. Evelyn was deep inside a vendor report when her coworker Tessa rolled her chair over. Is this you? Evelyn looked up. Tessa held out her phone. On the screen was a blurry photo from the engagement party hallway. Evelyn stood in a pale blue dress, her face turned up in horror. Cole Mercer stood before her in his ruined black suit, looking almost amused. The caption read, "Mystery brunette drenches Cole Mercer at Belmont engagement party." Evelyn's mouth went dry. Oh no. Tessa's eyes widened. So it is you. It was an accident. You spilled a drink on Cole Mercer. Technically, I spilled a drink near him. Physics handled the rest. Tessa pulled the phone back and zoomed in. He's looking at you like that. Like what? Like he wants to either kill you or buy you a building. Evelyn grabbed the phone and handed it back. Neither option sounds healthy. Tessa leaned closer. Did he say anything Evelyn thought about his voice? You improved my evening. No. Liar. Before Evelyn could answer, Graham's office door opened again. Harper. My office? Tessa rolled away like a witness leaving a crime scene. Evelyn walked in and closed the door behind her. Graham was at his desk staring at his computer. The same photo was open on his screen. She felt something sink inside her. Is this going to be an issue? He asked. I spilled champagne at a family event. On Cole Mercer. I didn't select the target. This firm handles sensitive accounts. We can't have employees appearing in gossip columns with men under federal interest. Federal interest. Graham gave her a look that said adults knew not to ask obvious questions. Evelyn kept her voice even. My personal life has nothing to do with my work. Let's keep it that way. She left his office with her jaw tight and her face hot. For the rest of the afternoon, she worked faster than usual. Anger made her precise. Every number lined up. Every missing receipt was flagged. Every formula was clean. If anyone wanted to reduce her to a blurry photograph, they could do it while standing beside flawless reports. At 5:40, she stepped out of the building into early darkness. A black car waited at the curb. Not just black. Polished black. Quiet black. The kind of car that looked less parked than placed. A man in a dark coat stood beside the rear door. Miss Harper Evelyn stopped. People streamed around her toward the train, their shoulders hunched against the cold. The driver looked calm, professional, and entirely out of place. No, she said. The man blinked. I'm sorry. No? As in, whatever this is? No. He reached into his coat. Evelyn stepped back. He paused immediately and raised his hand, showing an envelope. Mr. Mercer asked me to give you this. She stared at the envelope. Mr. Mercer can use the postal service. The driver almost smiled, but training stopped him. He said you might say that. Against her better judgment, Evelyn took it. The paper was thick, cream-colored, and expensive enough to annoy her. Inside was a receipt from a luxury cleaner. Paid in full. Beneath it was a handwritten note. You still owe me an apology I can hear without a ballroom watching. Cole. Evelyn read it twice. Then she looked at the driver. I already apologized. I'm only the messenger, ma'am. And if I say no, I take you home. She narrowed her eyes. In the car. No. I leave you alone, and you take yourself home. That helped. A little. What does he want dinner? Of course he does. The driver waited without pressure. That made it worse, somehow. If Cole had ordered, she could reject him. If he had pushed, she could be angry. Instead, he had left her a choice, and choices were harder to dismiss. Evelyn pulled out her phone and dialed the number written below his name. He answered on the second ring. Evelyn. Her name and his voice did something inconvenient to her spine. Do you usually send cars to women's jobs? No. Do you usually have women's workplaces investigated before asking them to dinner? A pause. I knew where you worked because your cousin's fiancé introduced me to your firm last year. That was annoyingly plausible, still creepy. Fair. She was not expecting that. The city moved around her. Horns, footsteps, the metallic groan of the train overhead. I don't get into cars with strange men. I'm not in the car. That does not make it better. I can meet you somewhere public. Somewhere you choose. Evelyn looked at the black car, then at the train entrance, then at her reflection in the dark glass of the office building. She should say no. Every practical part of her knew that. But another part, the part that had stood invisible beneath chandeliers for 27 years, wanted to know why the most feared man in that room had looked at her like she was the only real thing there. Lou's Diner, she said. Where is that Wicker Park? If your driver doesn't know that's a character flaw, I'll find it. No bodyguards inside. Another pause. One nearby. No, Evelyn. Cole. His silence shifted. She could almost hear him measuring the distance between command and respect. Fine, he said. No one inside, and no private room. Understood. And I'm paying for my own food. That seems unnecessary. That seems mandatory. A low breath that might have been a laugh. 6:30. I have a cat. Of course you do. She hung up before she could ask what that meant. Lou's Diner sat on a corner beneath a flickering sign with red booth's chrome edges and coffee strong enough to make regret sit up straight. Evelyn arrived early because anxiety had never understood fashionable lateness. She chose a booth with a view of the entrance and the kitchen, then ordered coffee she did not need. At 6:30 exactly, Cole Mercer walked in. The diner changed, but not like the mansion had. No one knew who he was here. A cook shouted for more fries. A toddler banged a spoon against the table. An old man in a bear's cap argued with the television. Cole stood near the entrance in a charcoal overcoat, dark hair touched by snow, looking like a cathedral had wandered into a laundromat. The waitress, Marlene, looked him up and down. Sit anywhere handsome. Evelyn nearly choked on her coffee. Cole slid into the booth across from her. You chose a diner, he said. You chose a black car. I thought we both needed humbling. His mouth curved. Did it work? No. You look expensive in here, too. Marlene appeared with a pot of coffee. Coffee, honey. Cole glanced at Evelyn. She recommends it, Evelyn said. I'll have coffee. Marlene poured. You two eating? Yes, Evelyn said. He's having the meatloaf. Cole looked at her. I am. You need to experience consequences. Marlene grinned. I like her. So do I, Cole said. The words landed too easily. Evelyn looked down at her menu, though she knew it by heart. When Marlene left, silence settled between them. Not awkward, exactly. Charged. Cole was the first to speak. I'm sorry about the car. Evelyn looked up. That sounded almost normal. It was meant to. Do you apologize often when I'm wrong? And how often is that? His eyes warmed. Less than people claim. More than I admit. She hated that she wanted to smile. I accept your apology, but don't do it again. I won't. Simple, direct. No argument. Evelyn watched him more carefully. People are afraid of you. Yes. You didn't even pretend to be surprised. I'm not. Should I be afraid of you? He held her gaze. No. That was too fast. Because it was true. The diner noise filled the space around them. Plates clattered. Someone laughed near the counter. Snow hit the windows and melted into silver trails. Evelyn wrapped both hands around her mug. Truth is not usually that neat. No, Cole said. But some truths are. Madison says your family is dangerous. My family was dangerous. Was. His eyes shifted toward the window. My father died 4 years ago. I'm sorry. Most people are not. Evelyn did not know what to do with that. Cole looked back at her. Arthur Mercer built things. Buildings, contracts, fear. He believed fear lasted longer than loyalty. And you, I believe fear is expensive. That's not the same as saying it's wrong. No, he said quietly. It isn't. There it was, the dark edge beneath the calm. Evelyn should have pulled away from it. Instead, she found herself leaning closer, not because she trusted him, but because he had not dressed the truth in perfume. Marlene returned with 2 plates. Meatloaf for Cole, grilled cheese and tomato soup for Evelyn. Cole looked at her plate. You brought me here and ordered like a child. I ordered like a person with a soul. He cut into the meatloaf with the focus of a man signing a treaty. Well, he tasted it. Evelyn waited. It's good, he said. You sound surprised. I am. Rich people are so brave. He laughed then. A real laugh, quiet but unguarded. It changed his face. Made him younger. Made him more dangerous in a different way. They talked, at first carefully. Weather, Chicago traffic, Madison's engagement party, her job. But then Cole asked her what she liked about accounting, and Evelyn gave him the answer she usually kept to herself. Numbers don't perform, she said. They don't flatter you because they want something. They don't smile in your face and laugh behind your back. If something doesn't balance, there's a reason. You just have to be patient enough to find it. Cole leaned back slightly. You trust numbers more than people. Don't say it like people have made a strong case. He nodded once, accepting that. What do numbers tell you about me? He asked. Evelyn studied him across the table. The clean lines of his suit. The untouched watch at his wrist. The way he sat facing the door without seeming to. The way his eyes moved to every person who entered, then came back to her. You count exits, she said. His expression changed by almost nothing, but she saw it. So do you? He said. That's different. How I'm trying to escape awkward conversations. You're expecting war. Cole did not answer right away. Old habit, he said. That sounds lonely. His eyes lifted to hers. It was the wrong thing to say. Too intimate, too soft. But it had already left her mouth. Cole set down his fork. It can be. For a moment, neither of them moved. Evelyn felt something open in the space between them. Not romance yet. Not trust. Recognition, maybe. 2 people sitting in a cheap diner, both trained by different lives to watch the door. After dinner, Evelyn insisted on paying for herself. Cole did not perform a masculine argument over the check. He let her place her cash on the table, then left a tip so large that Marlene pressed a hand to her chest and mouthed something that looked like "marry him." Evelyn pretended not to see. Outside, snow had thickened. The sidewalk glittered beneath the streetlights. For a moment, they stood under the diner awning, close enough for Evelyn to smell his cologne beneath the clean, cold air. Cole removed his coat. No, Evelyn said immediately. You're shivering. I'm making a political statement, against warmth, against assumptions. He held the coat open without stepping closer. Then assume I don't like seeing you cold. That should not have worked. It did. She took the coat and slipped it over her shoulders. It was heavy, warm, and smelled like cedar and winter. Cole kept his hands in his pockets after that. He did not touch her. That restraint felt louder than touch would have. "I'd like to see you again," he said. Evelyn looked out at the snow falling over Milwaukee Avenue. Cars passed with soft, hissing tires. Somewhere down the block, music spilled from a bar every time the door opened. "That sounds like a bad idea." "Probably. You admit that I don't lie when the truth is obvious." She looked at him then. "Are you always this calm? No. When are you not?" His gaze moved over her face, slow and careful. "When something matters?" The words settled against her skin. Evelyn handed his coat back before she could get used to wearing it. "I'll think about it." Cole took the coat but did not put it on. "Do that. And don't send a car to my job again." "Understood." She turned toward the train. "Evelyn." She stopped but did not look back. "I enjoyed tonight." A ridiculous thing happened then. Her chest warmed. She glanced over her shoulder. "Even with the meatloaf? Especially with the meatloaf?" She shook her head and walked toward the station boots crunching through thin snow. Behind her, Cole Mercer remained under the diner lights holding his coat in one hand, watching the woman who had ruined his suit, challenged his manners, fed him meatloaf, and somehow made the city feel less cold. Evelyn descended the station stairs with her pulse still unsteady. At the bottom she paused, pressed one hand to her chest, and let out a breath she had been holding since the night before. The train roared into the platform bright and loud. She stepped inside with snow melting in her hair, and the strange certainty that ordinary life had not ended. It had shifted. And somewhere above the tracks in the dark winter streets of Chicago, Cole Mercer looked toward the skyline as if he could already feel the first thread of his old life beginning to loosen. By the next morning, Evelyn told herself the dinner had been strange, nothing more. Strange was safe. Strange could be filed away with other things she did not have to understand, like rich people who owned 7 coats, or men who could silence a ballroom just by breathing. But Cole Mercer did not stay filed away. He stayed in the quiet spaces. He was there when she poured coffee and remembered the way he had accepted her boundaries without making her defend them. He was there when Graham Voss ignored her again at work, and she found herself thinking of Cole's steady attention across the diner table. He was there on the train ride home, reflected in the dark window beside her own face like a question she had not agreed to answer. For 3 days, he did not call. That should have relieved her. It annoyed her instead. On the 4th evening, as Evelyn sat at her kitchen table surrounded by receipts, Milo asleep across a stack of bank statements, her phone buzzed. "Cole." She stared at the name until the screen almost went dark, then answered. "You waited 4 days," she said. His voice came through low and calm. "I was proving I could." Evelyn looked toward the window where wet snow clung to the glass. Could what? Not chase. Her fingers tightened around the phone. "That sounds dangerously close to self-awareness. I am told it is useful in moderation." She tried not to smile. Failed. "What do you want?" "Cole." There was a small pause as if he liked the sound of his name in her voice. "To walk with you." "That is suspiciously normal. I'm trying something new. We're Lakefront Trail. Public, crowded. No car waiting outside your job." Evelyn leaned back in her chair. Milo opened one eye, judged her, then went back to sleep. "Are there going to be men in suits hiding behind trees?" "One man, not hiding, very bad at trees. Cole. I can ask him to stand farther away. You can ask him not to come." Silence. Not empty silence. Negotiation silence. Finally, Cole said, I can do that. Evelyn should have said no. Instead, she said, Saturday. 2:00. Saturday came with a hard blue sky and wind sharp enough to make strangers walk faster. Evelyn found Cole near the lake, standing at the edge of the trail in a charcoal coat, watching the water crash against the concrete. He looked too still for a place full of joggers, dogs, strollers, and tourists taking pictures with numb fingers. She walked up beside him. "You look like you're waiting for someone to confess," she said. He turned and the faintest warmth touched his eyes. "Maybe I am. Then I confess I almost stayed home. I confess I'm glad you didn't." The wind whipped hair across her face. She tucked it behind her ear and began walking. Cole matched her pace without crowding her. For a while they said little. The city rose behind them in glass and steel. Lake Michigan stretched gray and endless to their left, restless under the winter light. Evelyn liked that Cole did not fill every silence. Most men treated quiet like a problem they had to solve with their own voice. Cole let it breathe. After several minutes, Evelyn glanced over. "No security, not close enough for you to see." She stopped walking. Cole stopped too. "You said you could ask him not to come." "I did." "Cole, he is 3 blocks away. That is not coming." "No," Cole admitted. "It is not close." Evelyn folded her arms. "You understand how words work, right? I understand risk better. And I understand when a man agrees to something he has no intention of doing." That landed. His face did not harden, but something behind his eyes shifted. "I'm not used to leaving someone unprotected. I'm not used to being treated like an object someone might steal." The wind moved between them. A runner passed, breathing heavily, shoes slapping wet pavement. Cole looked past her toward the lake, jaw tight. "You think I'm trying to own you. I think you're trying not to lose control. I just happen to be standing near the control." His eyes came back to her. "That's fair." Again he surprised her. No denial. No wounded pride. Just the weight of a man hearing something he did not like and choosing not to crush it. Evelyn sighed. 3 blocks. 4 if that helps. "It does not. I'll make it 5. She stared at him until his mouth almost curved. "That was a joke," he said. "I know. I'm deciding whether it was funny. And barely." They kept walking. A small thing changed after that. Cole's shoulders loosened. Evelyn's anger cooled into something more cautious but less sharp. He told her about the lake in winter, how his mother used to bring him there when he was a boy before his father's men began following every move. Evelyn told him about growing up in a house where Madison's achievements were treated like fireworks, and Evelyn's were treated like utility bills, necessary, dull, and expected. "Your mother loves you," Cole said. "She does," Evelyn answered. "She just loves me better when I'm understandable." "And are you?" To her, no. To myself, also no. Cole looked at her, and this time he did smile. They started seeing each other after that. Not every day. Evelyn would not allow that. She kept work, her apartment, her routines, her Sunday calls with Ruth, even when Cole's presence pressed at the edges of all of it like weather. He learned the names of places she loved. The small bookstore near Damon, the taco truck that parked outside the laundromat, the bakery that sold cinnamon rolls so big they required a moral decision. He moved through these ordinary places with quiet curiosity, like a man visiting a country where nobody owed him fear. One evening, they sat in a corner booth at a crowded Mexican restaurant while snow melted off their coats. Evelyn watched him pick up a taco with the concentration of a surgeon. "You've had tacos before," she said. "Not from a truck. That's tragic. I've had other experiences. Yes. I'm sure your life of private chefs and quiet intimidation has been very rich." He glanced at her over the food. "I don't intimidate quietly." "No. The silence does most of the work." He took a bite, considered it, and nodded. "This is excellent. Try not to buy the truck. I make no promises." Little by little, the myth around him began to crack. Cole Mercer. The man everyone feared hated mushrooms, tipped too much, noticed when Evelyn was cold, never interrupted her when she explained something, and listened to numbers as if they might reveal scripture. He also checked reflective windows without thinking, sat facing doors, and sometimes went silent in the middle of a sentence because a man across the room had moved his hand too quickly. Danger lived in him like an old injury. Evelyn saw that most clearly the night he brought her to his penthouse. The building stood near the river, all dark glass and private elevators. Evelyn nearly changed her mind in the lobby where the marble floor reflected her boots, and the doorman greeted Cole without blinking. Cole noticed. "We can leave," he said. She looked at him. "I didn't say anything." "You held your breath." "That's annoying. Useful, though." She wanted to argue, but he was right. "I'm not scared of the elevator," she said. "I didn't think you were. I'm scared of what it means." Cole pressed the button. The doors opened without a sound. "It means you're seeing where I live. Nothing more unless you decide it does." She stepped inside. The elevator rose so smoothly it felt unreal. Evelyn watched the city fall away through the glass wall, light stretching beneath them like spilled jewelry. Cole stood beside her, hands at his sides, not touching her. At the top, he opened the door to a penthouse that was exactly what she expected, and nothing like it. The main room was wide and spare, with dark wood floors, low furniture, and windows that made Chicago look owned. But there were no trophies of wealth scattered around, no loud art, no gold, no cruelty dressed as taste. Then Cole led her through a narrow hall to a glass door. Warm air met her first. Evelyn stepped inside and stopped. A greenhouse rose above the city. Not a decorative room with a few plants. A real greenhouse. Lemon trees in clay pots. White roses climbing iron frames. Lavender, basil, rosemary, tomato vines tied carefully with soft cloth. Rain slid down the glass roof, turning the skyline into a blur of light beyond leaves. For a moment, she forgot to be careful. "You grow things," she whispered. "I try." She walked slowly between the rows. The air smelled like earth and citrus and something alive. It made no sense in the sky, this small piece of summer held above a frozen city by a man people spoke of in lowered voices. She touched a lemon hanging heavy from a branch. While Cole stood a few feet away, his coat removed sleeves rolled at the wrist. "Plants don't care who my father was." Evelyn turned. He looked different here. Not softer, exactly. More exposed. "They live if I do the work," he said. "They die if I don't. No flattery, no fear, just consequences." "That sounds like accounting with dirt." His mouth curved. "I thought you'd appreciate that." She did, more than she wanted to. They sat on a wooden bench beneath the lemon tree. Outside, the glass, Chicago glittered cold and hard. Inside, the air held them close. Cole told her about Arthur Mercer. Not everything. Enough. He spoke of a father who taught him to read fear before he learned to read contracts. A father who believed mercy was a leak in the roof and love was a door enemies could open. He spoke of childhood dinners where men arrived laughing and left pale. Of his mother growing quieter every year. Of inheriting an empire that came wrapped in blood and paperwork. Evelyn listened without interrupting. When he finished, his hands were clasped loosely between his knees, but his knuckles had gone pale. "I spent half my life learning how to become him," Cole said, "and the rest trying not to." Evelyn looked at the plants around them. Which half is winning? He gave a short breath, not quite a laugh. "Depends on the day." She did not reach for him right away. Something told her that touch in that moment would let him hide inside comfort. so she gave him honesty instead. "I don't need you perfect." His gaze lifted. "I need you honest. Honesty can be ugly, so can pretending." The words sat between them, small and dangerous. Cole looked at her like she had placed a hand on a bruise he had spent years dressing in silk. Later, when he walked her to the elevator, he brushed his fingers against hers. He did not take her hand. He asked without asking. Evelyn let her fingers curl around his. His hand was warm, steady, and careful. That carefulness was what undid her. By the next week, Chicago knew her name. The first photo appeared on a gossip site just after dawn. Evelyn leaving Cole's building in the morning, wrapped in her own coat hair, twisted up face turned from the camera. The headline made her sound like a secret and a scandal. Mystery accountant, seen leaving Cole Mercer's penthouse. By 8:30, Tessa had texted 3 question marks. By 9, Madison had called twice. By 9:15, Graham Voss closed his office door with Evelyn inside it and pinched the bridge of his nose like she had personally caused a market crash. "This is not ideal," he said. Evelyn stood across from his desk, her hands clasped so tightly her fingers ached. "I did not invite photographers. Perception matters. So does reality. Clients do not always separate the two." She stared at him. "You're questioning my work because I had dinner with someone. I'm saying this firm cannot afford reputational complications." The phrase was so polished it barely resembled cowardice. Evelyn went back to her desk and opened the quarterly reconciliation file with shaking hands. The numbers blurred. Around her, whispers rose and fell. She made it to the restroom before her breathing broke. Inside a stall, she sat fully dressed on the closed toilet seat, palms pressed to her eyes. She was angry with the photographers, angry with Graham, angry with Madison for warning her in a voice that now sounded too much like truth. But beneath all that, she was angry with herself for wanting to call Cole. She did not want to need rescue. She wanted the room to stop spinning. Her phone buzzed. "Cole." She answered and said nothing. His voice came through immediately. "Where are you?" "At work. You're upset." "I'm in a bathroom stall, Cole." "Don't make it mystical. I can make the photos disappear." "No." "Evelyn." "No. You cannot erase my problems like they're bad press. This is my life." His silence tightened. "I'm sorry." That almost made it worse. She wiped under her eyes with the back of her hand. "I know. I didn't protect you from this. I didn't ask you to. But I should have anticipated it. You are not responsible for every ugly thing people do. I'm responsible for the ugly things that happen because of me." Evelyn closed her eyes. There it was again, his world trying to wrap itself around her. "Cole, I have to go back to work. I'll be downstairs." "No, I'll wait in the lobby." "No." A pause. "What do you need?" The question was so simple that it took her a second to answer. "I need you to let me get through the day." He exhaled slowly. "Then I will." And he did. That evening he did not send a car. He did not appear in the lobby. He sent one text. "Dinner is on your doorstep. No driver waiting. No obligation. Eat before you decide to hate me." When Evelyn got home, a paper bag from Lou's Diner sat outside her apartment door. Grilled cheese, tomato soup, a slice of apple pie. She stood in the hall holding the bag, trying very hard not to smile. The charity auction happened 3 nights later. Evelyn almost refused to go. Then she imagined the gossip sites writing that Cole Mercer's mystery woman had vanished and stubbornness dressed her better than courage. She wore a black dress she bought herself after visiting 4 stores and returning 2 options in a panic. Cole noticed immediately. "You look beautiful," he said when she opened her apartment door. "I look financially irresponsible." "You look beautiful." he repeated. She let herself believe him for 3 seconds. The auction was held in a museum hall filled with white flowers, old money, and people pretending not to stare. Cole kept a respectful hand near the small of her back without touching unless she leaned closer. Evelyn noticed that too. His restraint had become a language. Then Blair Whitcomb appeared. She was tall, elegant, and dressed in ivory with pale hair swept back and diamonds at her ears. She looked like she had never rushed for a train in her life. Cole Blair said, kissing the air near his cheek. "You've been difficult to reach. I've been busy." Her eyes moved to Evelyn. "So, I see." Cole's expression cooled. Blair Whitcomb. "Evelyn Harper." Blair extended her hand. "You're the accountant." Evelyn shook it. "You're the woman saying accountant like it has quotation marks." Blair's smile sharpened. "How refreshing. That sounds like an insult wearing perfume." For one bright second, Blair looked delighted. Cole looked like he was trying not to laugh. Blair leaned closer, lowering her voice just enough. "Be careful, Evelyn Harper. Men like Cole do not get to love quietly. Anyone he touches becomes a message." Evelyn felt the words slide under her skin. Cole's voice dropped. "That's enough." Blair stepped back, expression smooth again. "I'm only being kind." "No," Evelyn said, surprising herself. "You're being accurate." "Kind would have come with champagne." Blair studied her for a beat. Then she smiled. "Maybe there's more to you than the photo suggested." After Blair walked away, Cole turned to Evelyn. She had no right. But was she wrong? His jaw tightened. The answer was in his silence. By the time Evelyn got home, her feet hurt and her head was full. Cole walked her upstairs but stayed in the hall while she unlocked her door. The lock turned too easily. Evelyn froze. Cole noticed instantly. "What, I locked it?" He moved in front of her, all warmth gone. "Stay behind me." This time she did. He opened the door. The apartment was dark. Quiet. Milo was not at the door. Evelyn's stomach dropped. Cole stepped inside, first one hand already reaching beneath his coat. She saw the motion and understood something cold and real. Whatever he carried there was not for show. A lamp was on in the kitchen. Nothing seemed stolen. Then Evelyn saw the windowsill. Her basil plant had been cut clean at the stem. On the kitchen table lay a white card. Cole picked it up before she could. His face changed. "What does it say?" she asked. He did not answer. "Cole." He handed it to her. "Pretty things die near Mercer." For a moment, the apartment tilted. Then Milo crawled out from under the couch, frightened but alive. Evelyn dropped to her knees and pulled him close, burying her face in his fur. Cole was already on the phone, voice low and lethal. Men arrived within minutes. Not police. Cole's men. They moved through her apartment with gloved hands and silent efficiency, checking windows, locks, corners, shadows. Her home became a scene. Her kitchen, her books, her thrift store mugs, all touched by the edge of his world. Cole stood near the door, his face carved from stone. "You're coming with me," he said. Evelyn looked up from the couch, Milo pressed against her lap. "No." His eyes snapped to hers. "This is not a negotiation." "Then you're talking to the wrong woman. Someone came into your home." "Yes," she said, voice shaking now. "My home. Mine. You don't get to take it from me because someone scared you. This is not about fear. Don't lie to me in my own living room." That hit him. The men in the apartment went very still. Cole stepped closer, then stopped himself. "I can keep you safe. You can keep me watched. That is not the same thing." "Evelyn, I will not be loved like evidence in a locked drawer." His control cracked then, just enough for her to see the terror underneath. I don't know how to love someone without preparing for their funeral." The room seemed to lose sound. Evelyn's anger faltered, but it did not vanish. She stood slowly still, holding Milo against her chest. "Then learn," she said, "because I won't be loved like a hostage." Cole stared at her. For once, he had no answer ready. Outside, sirens wailed somewhere far away, rising and falling through the city night. Finally, Cole nodded once. "You stay here tonight if that's what you choose." "It is." 2 men downstairs. "Cole, downstairs," he said. "Not at your door. Not inside. Not where you can see them unless you look." She wanted to refuse on principle, but the cut basil plant sat dead on the windowsill, and Milo was still trembling in her arms. Downstairs, she said, "That's all. That's all." His men finished their search. One repaired the lock, another checked the fire escape. Slowly, the apartment emptied until only Cole remained by the door. He looked at the severed basil, then at her. "I'm sorry." She believed him. That did not fix it. "I know," she said. Cole opened the door, paused, and looked back as if leaving her there cost him something physical. Then he stepped into the hall and closed it softly behind him. Evelyn stood in the middle of her apartment, surrounded by silence that no longer felt safe. She set Milo down, walked to the window, and looked at the street below. A black car idled near the curb. Farther away, under a broken streetlight, another car waited with its headlights off. For a second, Evelyn thought it belonged to Cole. Then a small red dot blinked behind the windshield like a camera catching focus. She stepped back from the window, heart climbing into her throat. On the table, the white card lay beneath the kitchen light. "Pretty things die near Mercer." Evelyn picked it up with trembling fingers, but this time, beneath the fear, something else began to move. Not courage yet. Anger. Cold, clear, and awake. By morning, the white card was still on Evelyn's kitchen table, and every time she looked at it, the words seemed to breathe. "Pretty things die near Mercer." She had slept maybe 2 hours, curled on the couch with Milo pressed against her ribs and every light in the apartment burning. The new lock shone on the door like a stranger's eye. Downstairs, Cole's men remained in the black car exactly where he said they would be. Not at her door. Not inside. Not visible unless she looked. But Evelyn looked. Again and again. At 6:15, she stood by the window with a mug of coffee cooling in her hand, watching the street wake up. A delivery truck groaned past. A woman in red boots walked a terrier along the curb. A cyclist swore at a cab. Chicago kept moving as if fear had not entered her apartment in the night and cut down a basil plant like a warning. Her phone buzzed. Cole. She let it ring twice before answering. "Did you sleep?" he asked. "Did you? No. At least we're both making poor health choices." His silence was soft, careful. "I want you somewhere safer today. Good morning to you too. Evelyn." She closed her eyes. "I'm going to work. You don't have to prove anything. That's funny because everyone keeps acting like I do. This is not about pride. No, Cole. It's about my life. I have rent. I have a job. I have a cat who contributes nothing financially. I can help with all of that." The words were not cruel. That made them worse. Evelyn opened her eyes and stared at the cut stem on the windowsill. "I know you can. That's the problem." On the other end, she heard him breathe out slowly. "I'm trying not to handle this badly. Then don't start by trying to buy my problems. I'm trying to keep you alive, and I'm trying to stay myself." That stopped him. The city outside her window turned pale under a weak winter sun. Finally, Cole said, "2 men will follow at a distance." "No. 1. No. Evelyn, whoever came into your apartment did it without breaking the old lock. That means they had skill or access. I'm not asking you to be afraid. I'm asking you to be practical." She hated that practical sounded like her own language. "One man," she said, "far enough that I don't feel him breathing behind me. Done. And he doesn't come into my office. He stays outside. And if I see him near my desk, I'm throwing a stapler. I'll warn him." She almost smiled. Almost. The office felt different when she arrived. Not visibly. The same gray carpet, the same buzzing lights, the same burnt coffee in the break room, but people looked up too quickly, then looked away too slowly. Tessa caught her near the copy machine. "Are you okay?" Evelyn slipped a folder under one arm. "I had someone break into my apartment. My basil plant was murdered, and my boss thinks I'm a reputational hazard, so you know thriving." Tessa's face changed. "Someone broke in? Keep your voice down." "Evelyn." "I'm fine." "No, you're standing very straight. That's what you do when you are absolutely not fine." Before Evelyn could answer, Graham Voss appeared outside his office. "Harper, now!" Tessa touched Evelyn's elbow once, then stepped away. Inside Graham's office, the blinds were half closed. That was never good. Graham stood behind his desk with his arms crossed, the posture of a man pretending his spine belonged to someone braver. "Sit down," he said. "I'd rather stand." His mouth tightened. "We have a situation." Evelyn looked at the printed packet on his desk. Her name sat at the top of the first page beside a cropped photo of her leaving Cole's building. "No," she said. "You have anxiety." "There's a difference. Several clients have expressed concern." "About what?" "My spreadsheet's dating a rumor. This is not a joke. I agree. My private life being used to question my professional competence is not funny." Graham pressed his fingers to the desk. "Until this attention settles, I'm removing you from the Kessler and Dunham accounts." The words hit harder than she expected. Those accounts were hers. Messy, neglected, complicated. She had cleaned them. She had found errors nobody else bothered to see. She had stayed late for weeks, building order out of other people's carelessness. "You're punishing me. I'm protecting the firm." "From what exactly?" "From association." Evelyn stared at him. "You mean from me?" Graham had the decency to look away. "It's temporary. Temporary is what people say when they don't want to admit they've already decided." She left before he could reply. At her desk, she sat very still. The humiliation was sharp, but beneath it something colder formed. She opened her email. Access revoked. Access revoked. Access revoked. One account after another disappeared from her dashboard like doors closing in a hallway. Tessa watched from across the aisle, face pale. Evelyn did not cry. She opened a blank document and began writing down everything that had happened since the party. Dates, times, names, headlines, the driver, the note, the break-in, Graham's decision, every detail clean and numbered. Numbers did not panic. By noon, Ruth had called 7 times. Evelyn finally answered from the stairwell. "Mom, I'm at work. Are you safe?" The fear in Ruth's voice cut through Evelyn's irritation. "I'm okay. Madison told me someone broke into your apartment. Madison talks too much." Evelyn Rose Harper. That full name still worked, annoyingly. Evelyn leaned against the wall, tired suddenly. "I'm okay. Milo's okay." Nothing was stolen. "That is not comforting, I know. You need to come stay with me." "Mom, I mean it. I don't care how old you are. You come home when someone threatens you." Home. The word landed strangely. Her mother's house in Oak Park still smelled like lemon cleaner and old furniture polish. Safe, yes, but also tight. Full of concern that turned into control by dinner. "I can't." Because of him, Evelyn closed her eyes. Because of me. Ruth went quiet. "I don't understand what that means." It means every person in my life has decided what I should do, where I should go, who I should be afraid of. I'm trying to hear my own voice in the middle of it. And what is it saying? Evelyn looked down the empty stairwell. It's saying I'm tired. Ruth's voice softened. Then let somebody help you. I am. Just not by disappearing. That evening, Madison insisted on dinner. Evelyn refused twice, then gave in because Madison sounded less dramatic than usual, which meant something was wrong. They met at a quiet Italian restaurant where the bread was too good and the lighting made everyone look forgiven. Madison arrived in a camel coat, perfect hair, and a face that lost its polish the moment she saw Evelyn. You look awful, Madison said. Always a pleasure. I mean scared. Evelyn sat down. That's not better. Madison ordered wine without asking, then leaned in. People are saying things. People are professionally committed to that. About Cole, about you, about whether you're being used. Evelyn looked toward the window. Outside, headlights moved along wet pavement. And what do you think Madison's fingers tightened around her glass? I think I liked being near powerful people until I realized power always asks someone else to pay the bill. That was not the answer Evelyn expected. Madison looked down, her diamond ring flashing under the table light. When I got engaged, everyone said I was lucky. They didn't ask if I was happy. They asked about the venue, the dress, the guest list, the connections, like I had been promoted. Evelyn softened despite herself. Are you happy? Madison laughed once, quiet and sad. I'm curated. For the first time in years, Evelyn saw not the cousin who outshone her, but the woman trapped inside the shine. Madison reached across the table. I don't want you hurt, Evie. I don't either. Then why are you still answering his calls? Evelyn did not answer right away. Because Cole listened. Because he scared her less when he was honest than other men did when they were kind. Because he looked at her like she was not a background object in someone else's expensive room. Because he was dangerous, yes, but so was being unseen for the rest of her life. I don't know, she said. Madison nodded, like that was the most honest thing either of them had said all night. Across town, Cole Mercer stood in the glass conference room at Mercer Holdings while men argued around him. Frank Malloy sat at the far end, broad-shouldered and stone-faced, an old wolf in an expensive coat. On the table lay photos from Evelyn's apartment. The card, the cut basil, the lock. Cole looked at none of them. He had already memorized every detail. Frank tapped the table with 2 fingers. This was Rourke. You don't know that. I know the smell of a rat before it runs across my shoe. The head of security. Dominic nodded. The car across from her building was stolen. Plates switched. Camera was disabled on the block 10 minutes before entry. Cole's voice stayed level. And the building access? Still checking. Frank leaned forward. Silas Rourke wants you angry. Cole turned his head slightly. He threatened Evelyn. He threatened your discipline. There's a difference. The room quieted. Frank's eyes did not soften. Rourke can't beat your money straight on. Not since you moved half the operation into legal channels. He needs you to act like your father. One ugly night, one body in the river, one witness with a phone. Then all your clean contracts rot from the inside. Cole's jaw tightened. Do not use her as strategy. Everyone else already is. The words sat like smoke. Frank lowered his voice. Send the girl away. Put her somewhere no one can find her. Cole's eyes turned cold. She is not cargo. No, Frank said. She's leverage. Cole's hand closed around the back of a chair. For 1 second, every man in the room remembered whose son he was. Then Cole released the chair. No one moves on Rourke without my order. Frank studied him. And if he moves on her again, Cole's voice dropped. Then pray I remember who I'm trying not to be. The worst fight came 2 days later. Evelyn had gone to the grocery store after work, determined to do one ordinary thing. She stood in the cereal aisle comparing prices because normal life was built on tiny decisions like that. Oats or rice cereal, store brand or name brand, buy apples now or wait until payday. Then she saw him, a man in a dark jacket at the end of the aisle pretending to examine pasta sauce while looking at her through the reflection in the freezer door. Not 3 blocks away, not outside, inside. Evelyn walked straight to him. "You work for Cole?" The man froze. "Ma'am, that's not an answer. I'm here for your safety. You are here because he lied." She left the basket in the aisle and walked out into the cold without buying anything. Cole was waiting at her apartment when she got home. Not inside. In the hallway, leaning against the opposite wall, his coat dark with melted snow. She stopped at the top of the stairs. "You sent him into the store." Cole straightened. "Yes. At least you're honest when cornered. There was a man near your office this afternoon. Was he a threat?" "We're checking." "So you don't know?" "I know enough." Evelyn unlocked her door with sharp movements and stepped inside. Cole followed only when she left it open. Milo fled under the couch, having developed excellent judgment. "You promised boundaries," she said. "I promised to keep men out of your office." "I did." She turned on him. "Do not lawyer me." His face tightened. "Rourke is circling you, and you are closing the cage before he gets the chance. This is not a cage. It has guards' rules and a man deciding where I'm allowed to feel safe." "What would you call it?" "Cole's control slipped. I would call it keeping you alive. I would call it fear wearing your voice." He stepped closer, then stopped himself, his hands flexing at his sides. "You think I want this? You think I enjoy watching every window, every car, every stranger who looks at you too long? No. I think you hate it. I think it terrifies you, and I think when you're terrified you become the most dangerous version of yourself." That struck deep. Cole looked away. "My father once told me love was a weakness men invented to excuse bad decisions." "And do you believe him no?" The answer was immediate rough. Evelyn's voice softened, but only slightly. "Then stop treating me like proof that he was right." For a moment, the apartment held only the hum of the refrigerator and the traffic below. Cole looked back at her. "I don't know how to do this cleanly. Then do it honestly. I'm trying. Try harder." The words were harsh, necessary. Cole nodded once, but pain moved through his face before he could hide it. "I'll pull them back. Not all the way. I'm not stupid." His eyes lifted. "One outside the building, one outside. Not in stores. Not behind me on sidewalks. Not at work. If there's a specific threat, you tell me. You do not manage me like a liability. You are not a liability. Then prove it." He left soon after, and this time Evelyn did not watch him from the window. She sat at her kitchen table instead, opened her laptop, and tried to work with hands that would not stay still. Graham had placed her on partial leave that afternoon. Paid, he emphasized, as though being paid to be removed from her own competence was a gift. Her access was limited but not gone entirely. Old files remained cached on her laptop. Vendor reports, reconciliation notes, payment logs she had downloaded weeks ago for accounts no one else cared about. Evelyn opened one at random because she needed numbers to steady herself. The spreadsheet filled the screen. Rows, dates, amounts, vendor names. Her breathing slowed. This was a Mercer subcontractor account tied to a waterfront development project, one of the files she had been helping clean before Graham removed her. The payments were ordinary at first glance. Consulting fees, freight adjustments, equipment rentals. Then one number snagged her attention. $9,800. 3 lines later, $9,750. Then $9,900. Always under $10,000. Always split across different vendors. She sat up straighter. Most people loved round numbers. Criminals loved numbers just below reporting thresholds. Evelyn pulled another file, then another. The same pattern appeared beneath different names. Small vendors with polished websites that said nothing. Addresses that led to mailboxes, storage units, empty suites above nail salons. Payments moving like raindrops down glass separate until you stepped back and saw the shape. Her anger cooled into focus. She searched one company name, Briar Lane Logistics. Nothing useful. She searched the registered agent. That name led to another company, then another, then a property record in Cicero, then a political donation, then a city inspection office. By midnight, her kitchen table had become a battlefield of printed records, sticky notes, highlighted bank lines, and half-empty coffee cups. Milo sat in the middle of it, offended by the lack of space. Evelyn whispered numbers under her breath. Not Cole's money. That was the first shock. The payments were not flowing from Mercer Holdings. They were moving around it through subcontractors and false vendors attached to projects Cole was trying to legitimize. Someone was building a frame around him, one invoice at a time. By 2 a.m, she found the name. Rourke Development Services, buried behind 2 shell companies and a consulting firm registered to a dead man. Evelyn sat back, heart-pounding. Silas Rourke was not just threatening Cole from the outside. He was inside the paperwork planting rot where auditors, journalists, and federal agents would eventually find it. She reached for her phone, then stopped. Cole would send cars, men, orders. He would take the information and lock her away from the rest. No, not this time. She worked until sunrise. At 8:30, Evelyn walked into Mercer Holdings carrying a thick folder against her chest. She wore the same black coat from the charity auction and flat shoes because she intended to move fast if anyone tried to stop her. The lobby was all glass steel and quiet money. Security recognized her at once. "Miss Harper, do you have an appointment?" "No. I'll need to call up. You can do that while I'm in the elevator." "Miss Harper." She kept walking. 2 guards moved toward her. Evelyn turned tired eyes bright with something sharper than fear. "Call Cole and tell him I found Rourke in his books. Then decide if you want to be the reason I'm late." The guard stopped. One of them touched his earpiece. The elevator opened. Evelyn stepped inside. When the doors opened on the top floor, Dominic was waiting. Behind him, through the glass walls of the conference room, Cole stood with Frank and 3 lawyers around a table. Cole turned as if he had felt her arrive. Dominic tried to speak. Evelyn walked past him. She pushed open the conference room door. Every man looked up. Cole's eyes moved over her face, taking in the exhaustion, the folder, the fact that she had come alone. "Evelyn, you said Rourke was coming for you." The room went quiet. Cole stepped toward her. "He is." "No," she said. She dropped the folder onto the conference table. Papers slid across the polished wood covered in highlighted numbers, company names, payment trails, and notes written in her small, precise handwriting. Evelyn looked at Cole, then at Frank, then at the lawyers who suddenly seemed far less certain of the room they were standing in. "He's already here." Frank reached for the top page, but Evelyn placed her hand on it first. "And before anyone tells me to go somewhere safe, understand this." Her voice shook, but it did not break. "I am done being treated like the softest part of this story." Cole held her gaze. For once, he did not argue. He pulled out a chair. "Show me." The chair scraped softly against the floor as Cole pulled it out for Evelyn, but she did not sit. Not yet. Her legs ached from no sleep. Her eyes burned. Her hands were cold around the folder she had carried like evidence and armor all the way through downtown Chicago. Still standing mattered. For the first time since that champagne spilled across Cole Mercer's suit, she was not entering his world by accident. She had walked in with proof. Evelyn turned to the glass wall behind the conference table. "I need tape," she said. One of the lawyers blinked. "Tape?" "Yes." The small, sticky thing people used before everyone decided screens made them smarter. Frank Malloy gave a dry laugh from the far end of the table. Cole looked at Dominic, who left without a word, and returned a minute later with tape markers and a stack of legal pads. Evelyn took the tape and began placing documents across the glass wall. Invoices first, then payment records, then vendor registration forms, then property filings, donation records, inspection notices, and screenshots of corporate websites that all used the same stock photo of a smiling warehouse worker. The men watched in silence. Evelyn felt their doubt. It was thick in the room. They knew violence, contracts, pressure, political favors. They knew how to move a body, bury a headline, persuade a man to remember things differently. But this was not their battlefield. This was hers. Cole stood near the head of the table, arms folded, eyes fixed on every page she placed. When Evelyn finished, the glass wall looked like a storm made of numbers. "This," she said, tapping the first invoice, "is where I noticed it." Frank leaned back. "A freight adjustment." "A fake freight adjustment," Evelyn said. "It is for $9,800. That number matters." Frank's brow tightened. "Because it is under 10,000. Evelyn looked at him. "So you do listen?" One of the lawyers coughed into his hand. Cole's mouth moved almost a smile. Evelyn pointed to another sheet. "This payment came 3 days later. 9,750. Different vendor. Same project. Then, here, 9,900. Then again, 9,600. The amounts shift just enough to look natural, but they stay under the kind of threshold that makes lazy people comfortable." Frank's eyes sharpened. "Structuring, among other things." She moved down the wall. Briar Lane Logistics, North Pier Consulting, Ashford Site Services. 3 different vendors, 3 different addresses, 3 different websites. Except the registered agent for Briar Lane shares an office address with Ashford. North Pier's domain was purchased with the same privacy service on the same day. Their invoices use the same formatting error in the tax identification line. Dominic stepped closer. "What error?" "There is an extra space before the last 4 digits. Evelyn tapped the page. "People change names. They forget habits." Cole watched her like he was seeing another room open inside a house he thought he knew. Evelyn took a breath. "These vendors are not billing Mercer Holdings directly. They are billing subcontractors attached to your waterfront development project. That creates distance. If anyone investigates, the dirt looks like it belongs to someone careless below you." One of the lawyers, a silver-haired man named Keene, took off his glasses. "You are saying Rourke is planting financial contamination inside Mercer projects. I am saying Silas Rourke is building a frame, and he is doing it patiently." Frank's face darkened. "That son of a bitch." Evelyn ignored the interruption and kept going because if she stopped, she might feel how tired she was. "Here is where it gets worse. These shell vendors connect to Rourke Development Services through 2 layers of holding companies. That company is tied to a dead man named Leonard Hale, who apparently signed corporate paperwork 6 months after his funeral." Dominic muttered something under his breath. Evelyn taped one more document to the glass. "And this is a payment trail to Deputy City Inspector Calvin Price." Cole's expression changed. "Not much." "Enough. Price inspected the waterfront site last month," he said. "Yes," Evelyn replied. "And he is scheduled to inspect again next week." Keene stepped forward. "If Price is compromised, he can shut the site down." "Exactly. But not just shut it down. He can file safety violations severe enough to trigger insurance review, federal attention lender panic, and press coverage." She tapped another page. And this donation record connects Rourke's people to a civic watchdog group that has been collecting documents on Mercer Holdings for the last 8 months. They are not random critics. They are a loaded gun. Frank stood. So we hit Rourke before he fires it. No, Evelyn said. The word came out harder than she intended. Every eye moved to her. Frank stared. Excuse me. You do not hit him. Not like that. Frank looked at Cole, then back at Evelyn. Sweetheart, with respect, you understand invoices? I understand men like Silas Rourke. Evelyn met his stare. With respect, men like Silas Rourke are counting on you understanding them exactly the way you always have. The room went silent. Frank's jaw worked once. Cole did not move. Evelyn picked up a marker and circled 3 clusters on the glass. Rourke does not need to beat Cole in the street. He needs Cole to react in a way that proves the story Rourke is preparing. He wants violence. He wants panic. He wants 1 dead man, 1 burned warehouse, 1 screaming witness, 1 photograph that makes every clean document in this building look like theater. Her voice lowered. If you answer him like Arthur Mercer would, Rourke wins before the first headline lands. Cole's eyes locked on hers. His father's name sat between them like an old ghost. Frank turned to Cole. You are going to let her talk to us like this? Cole looked at the wall, then at Evelyn. She is right. Frank's face tightened with something that looked almost like grief. Your father would have ended this tonight. Cole's voice turned cold. My father ended plenty of things. That is why I spend every day cleaning blood out of his legacy. No one spoke. Evelyn felt the weight of that sentence pass through the room. It did not soften Cole. It stripped him down. Keene stepped carefully into the quiet. If Miss Harper's analysis is accurate, there may be a legal route. It is accurate, Evelyn said. Keene looked at her. I believe you. But a court will require more than belief, then get more than belief. The room shifted after that. Doubt did not vanish, but it changed shape. It became attention. Cole moved to the glass wall beside Evelyn. Walk us through the attack. Evelyn nodded. There are 3 parts. She held up 1 finger. First, financial contamination. Rourke's shell vendors create suspicious transactions inside projects connected to Mercer. That makes your clean operations look dirty. A second finger. Second, regulatory pressure. Inspector Price flags the site, which gives the press and lenders a reason to dig. A third. Third, public narrative. The watchdog group releases documents at the same time, making it look like Mercer Holdings never changed. Add photographs of me gossip about your private life and old rumors about your father, and the story becomes emotional. The dangerous man lies to the city. The innocent woman is either his victim or his accomplice. Cole's gaze hardened. Evelyn looked at him. That is why they came into my apartment. Not just to scare me, to shape me. If I run, I look like a victim. If I stay silent, I look controlled. If you lash out, I become the reason. Frank slowly sat back down. Then what do you suggest Evelyn had been waiting for that? She took a fresh sheet from the folder and laid it on the table. You do not hide the records. You release the clean ones first. Keene leaned in. Voluntary disclosure. Yes, controlled, documented through counsel. You submit the suspicious subcontractor activity to federal authorities before Rourke's people leak it. You make it clear Mercer Holdings discovered irregularities and opened an internal investigation. Cole watched her. That protects the company. It protects the truth, she said. Those are not always the same thing. He accepted the correction with a small nod. Evelyn continued. Second, you freeze every subcontractor payment tied to these vendors. Quietly, not with threats, with compliance language. Make it boring. Boring terrifies criminals because boring leaves paper. Frank gave her a look that was almost admiration. "Boring terrifies criminals," he repeated. "It should. Most of them are bad at paperwork." Dominic moved to the table and picked up one of the invoices. "What about Price? You let him inspect?" Cole's head turned sharply. "No." Evelyn expected that. "You let him arrive. You make sure every inch of that site is clean. You document everything. Video independent engineers, third-party safety consultants. Then when he files false violations, your lawyers request emergency review and attach the payment trail." Keene nodded slowly. "That turns his report into evidence." "Exactly." And Rourke Evelyn looked back at the glass wall. Rourke loses distance. His shell companies become visible. His inspector becomes compromised. His watchdog leak becomes retaliation instead of revelation. Frank drummed his fingers once against the table. And if he decides to stop playing with paper, the room turned colder. Evelyn felt it. The part nobody wanted to say. Paper did not stop bullets. Evidence did not stop a car from following her home. Cole spoke before she could. "Then I remove her from the city." "No," Evelyn said. Cole looked at her. "No," she repeated. His eyes narrowed not in anger, but strain. "You are already a target. I know. You almost sound calm about that. I am not calm. I am exhausted and angry and running mostly on coffee, but I am still right." Frank looked toward the ceiling as if asking God for patience. Cole stepped closer to her. His voice dropped meant only for her, though everyone heard. "I will not use you as bait. I am not bait. I am a witness with better math. That is not comforting. It is not supposed to be." His gaze searched her face, and for a second the room fell away. She saw the man from the greenhouse, the boy trained to count threats before birthday candles, the son trying not to become the father, the lover who wanted to protect her so badly he could turn protection into a prison if she let him. Evelyn softened her voice. "Cole, I need you to listen to me, not because you love me, because I am good at this." Something moved through his expression. Respect hurt him more than affection, maybe because he knew it required surrender. Finally, he nodded. "What do you need?" Evelyn breathed. "A computer with full access to the subcontractor files. Keene's team to start legal disclosure. Dominic to verify the shell addresses. Someone who can talk to banks without sounding like a threat." Frank grunted. "That leaves me out." "And coffee," Evelyn said. "A lot of coffee." For the first time that morning, the room came alive without violence. Phones appeared. Lawyers opened laptops. Dominic began issuing instructions in a low voice. Frank called someone who owed him a favor and managed to make the favor sound like a weather report. Cole stayed beside Evelyn as she sat at the conference table and pulled up the files. Hours passed. Outside, Chicago moved from morning glare to afternoon steel. Snow clouds gathered over the river. Inside the conference room, Evelyn followed trails through invoices and contracts while Cole's world rearranged itself around her work. She found another shell company by 3. By 4, she had linked it to a warehouse lease outside Joliet. By 5, Dominic confirmed the address was active. By 6, Keene had drafted disclosure documents and was on the phone with federal contacts who preferred not to be surprised by scandals. At 7, Evelyn stood to stretch and nearly fell. Cole caught her elbow before she hit the chair. "You need to eat. I need the routing number from North Pier's second bank. You need food. Are you always this bossy when panicking?" "Yes. At least you are consistent." He did not let go until she steadied. A few minutes later, food arrived. Not elegant food. Sandwiches, soup, coffee, chocolate chip cookies from a bakery. Evelyn liked, but had never told Cole about. She looked at the bag, then at him. "How did you know?" His expression did not change. "You mentioned it once. When after the lake. You said their cookies were too expensive but emotionally persuasive. Evelyn stared at him, suddenly undone by the smallness of it. Cole Mercer remembered cookies. She looked away first. Blair Whitcomb arrived at 8:30. Evelyn saw her through the glass wall and stiffened. Blair entered in a cream coat heels, clicking against the floor, looking as if Crisis had personally invited her, and she had dressed better than it deserved. Cole Blair said, "Your message was rude, brief, and lacking context. Naturally, I came." Cole did not waste time. "We need media control." Blair's eyes moved to the wall of documents, then to Evelyn. "Well," she said, "the accountant has been busy." Evelyn leaned back in her chair. "If you say refreshing, I might throw a binder." Blair smiled, noted. Cole explained the situation in clipped sentences. Blair listened without interrupting, her expression losing its social shine. When he finished, she removed her gloves finger by finger. "Rourke is going to use her," Blair said, nodding toward Evelyn. "Not just as leverage, as symbolism." "I know," Cole said. Blair looked at Evelyn. "You need to be seen before he defines you." Evelyn did not like the sound of that. Seen how calm, competent, unafraid enough to be credible, afraid enough to be human. "I am not an actress." "No," Blair said. "That is why this might work." Evelyn studied her. Why help? Blair's face changed only slightly. "Because men like Silas Rourke think women are either decoration, distraction, or damage. I enjoy correcting men." Frank made a sound that might have been approval. Blair stepped closer to the table. "There is a charity board meeting tomorrow night. Press will be outside. Cole is expected. If Evelyn attends and appears composed, Rourke loses the easy victim story." Cole's answer came instantly. "No." Evelyn looked at him. "Cole, no." Blair arched one brow. "You asked for media control. This is media control. I will not parade her in front of cameras." Evelyn stood. "You do not get to decide that alone." His eyes flashed. "If something happens there, then we plan for it. We do not hide from every room Rourke might enter through rumor." Cole turned away, one hand at the back of his neck. The old fight returned, but changed. It had less command now, more pain. Evelyn stepped closer. "You said you wanted a way out of your father's world. This is what it looks like. You don't get to win with shadows and then be surprised when everyone believes the dark." He looked at her. "And if I cannot stand there and watch them aim cameras at you like weapons, then stand there and remember I am not defenseless because I am visible." Blair's gaze moved between them, unreadable. Finally, Cole said, "Dominic controls the perimeter." Evelyn nodded. "Fine. You stay beside me." "No." His jaw tightened. "I am serious." "So am I. I stay near you, not behind you." For a long second, he stared at her. Then he nodded. The charity board meeting took place the next evening inside a renovated theater near the river. Snow fell in wet flakes, catching in the bright lights of camera crews gathered behind velvet ropes. Evelyn sat in the back of Cole's car with her hands folded in her lap, feeling every beat of her heart in her throat. Cole sat beside her, silent. His hand rested on the seat between them, palm up. Not reaching. Offering. Evelyn looked at it. Then she placed her hand in his. His fingers closed gently around hers. "You do not have to do this," he said. "I know." That was not an argument. "I know that too." Outside, cameras turned toward the car as it stopped. For a second, Evelyn saw herself from far away. The quiet accountant. The woman in the blurry photo. The girl who had spent most of her life trying not to take up too much space. Then the door opened. Cold air rushed in. Cole stepped out first. Cameras flashed. Voices rose. "Mr. Mercer, Cole is the federal investigation expanding." "Who is she, Evelyn? Are you involved with Mercer Holdings?" Cole turned and offered his hand. Evelyn took it and stepped into the light. The cameras hit like lightning. She wanted to flinch. She did not. Blair's voice appeared near her shoulder, soft as silk. Breathe through your nose. Chin level. Evelyn walked beside Cole, not behind him. A reporter shouted louder than the rest. Miss Harper, are you worried about being connected to a criminal enterprise? The word criminal cracked through the air. Cole stopped. Evelyn felt his hand tighten, then loosen. He was letting her choose. She turned toward the reporter. I am an accountant, she said, voice clear enough to carry. If I were connected to a criminal enterprise, I would advise better bookkeeping. A ripple moved through the press. A few people laughed despite themselves. Evelyn continued before fear could return. Records matter. So do facts. I trust both more than rumors. Then she turned and walked inside. Cole stayed with her step for step. In the lobby away from the cameras, Evelyn finally exhaled. Blair appeared beside her. That was irritatingly good. Evelyn looked at her. Thank you, I think. Cole said nothing. He simply looked at Evelyn with something so fierce and quiet that she had to look away. The board meeting itself passed in a blur of handshakes and controlled smiles. Evelyn felt eyes on her all night, but the room did not swallow her. When people asked what she did, she answered. When they tried to measure her, she let them look. Blair redirected gossip with surgical grace. Cole spoke calmly with donors and civic leaders, never once pulling Evelyn into his shadow. Near the end of the night, Keene texted Cole. Federal intake confirmed. Injunction filing ready. Inspector Price is under review. Cole showed Evelyn the screen. She read it once, then looked at him. It's working. His eyes remained guarded. For now. They left through a side exit after midnight. The snow had turned to rain. Dominic's car was not at the curb. Cole noticed before Evelyn did. His body changed first. Stillness, then focus. Stay close, he said. This time she did. A black SUV rolled from the alley with its headlights off. Another appeared behind them. For one terrible second, the whole world narrowed to wet pavement engine growl, and Cole's hand closing around Evelyn's wrist. Inside, he said. They moved toward the side door, but it opened behind them before they reached it. Dominic appeared with two men, weapons low and hidden by coats. A man stepped from the first SUV. He did not raise a gun. He did not need to. He held up a phone. On the screen was a live video of Evelyn's apartment building. Cole went utterly still. The man smiled. Mr. Rourke says everyone can be reached. Evelyn felt Cole's rage before she saw it. It moved through him like a match dropped into gasoline. Frank appeared from the shadows near the curb, breathing hard, his own men behind him. Cole Frank warned. The messenger kept smiling. Maybe the accountant should go back to counting receipts. Cole moved. Evelyn grabbed his hand. Not hard enough to stop him physically. Hard enough to make him feel her there. He looked down at her. Rain ran along his jaw. His eyes were black with fury. Evelyn's voice shook. Not like your father. The words struck. Cole turned back to the messenger. Every man around them seemed to hold his breath. Then Cole smiled. It was not warm. It was not kind. It was controlled. Tell Rourke something for me. The messenger's smile faded. Cole stepped closer, voice low. Tell him the woman counting receipts just found his banks. The man's face changed before he could hide it. Cole looked at Dominic. Let him leave. Frank swore under his breath. The messenger backed toward the SUV. A moment later, both vehicles pulled away into the rain. Evelyn's knees nearly gave. Cole turned to her at once. Are you hurt? No. Evelyn? No, just scared. He reached for her, then stopped asking with his eyes. She stepped into him. His arms closed around her, careful and shaking with all the violence he had not used. The next morning, the counterattack landed. Mercer Holdings issued a voluntary disclosure through counsel identifying suspicious subcontractor activity connected to shell vendors. Keene filed emergency motions to freeze payments tied to the companies. Independent safety engineers released clean reports on the waterfront site. A civic watchdog group scheduled a press release, then abruptly postponed it when their own funding sources came under legal scrutiny. By noon, Deputy Inspector Calvin Price had been placed on leave. By 3, 2 banks flagged Rourke-connected accounts. By evening, the first article appeared. Mercer Holdings reports attempted financial sabotage in waterfront project. Not perfect, not clean, but not Rourke's story. Evelyn sat in Cole's conference room watching the headline refresh on a laptop screen. She should have felt victorious. Instead, she felt hollowed out. Cole stood behind her, one hand resting on the back of her chair. Frank entered without knocking. "Rourke wants a meeting." Cole did not react. "We're private room at Bellwether." Dominic frowned. "That place has too many exits." Frank looked at Cole. "That is why he chose it." Evelyn turned. "You're going?" Cole's eyes met hers. "Yes." She stood. "Then I'm going too." "No." The word came fast, but not as hard as before. Evelyn looked at him with tired patience. "I know. Not in the room." Cole stopped. "I can wait nearby with Keene. Rourke needs to know the evidence does not disappear if he threatens you. And you need to know I am not hiding in another locked space while men decide what my work means." Cole looked like he hated every syllable. Frank watched them both, then surprised her. "She's right." Cole turned on him. "Do not start agreeing with her now." Frank shrugged. "It's unsettling for me, too." Bellwether was an old private dining club above the river, all dark wood brass lamps and windows that looked down on black water. Evelyn waited in a closed bar room with Keene and 2 federal observers who pretended not to be federal observers. Cole entered the dining room alone except for Frank. Silas Rourke was already there. He was older than Evelyn expected, lean and silver-haired with a handsome face made cruel by comfort. He sat at the table as if he owned not just the room, but the fear inside it. "Cole Mercer Rourke said, the prince who wants to be a banker." Cole remained standing. "Silas." Rourke smiled. "I hear your accountant has been busy." "She has. Dangerous thing letting a woman read your books." Cole's eyes did not move. "Only if you are bad at hiding yours." Rourke's smile thinned. On the table, Keene's files lay stacked in clean order. Bank links, shell company maps, payment trails, Inspector Price's records, affidavits from subcontractors who had begun remembering things now that frozen accounts made loyalty expensive. Rourke glanced at the files and gave a soft laugh. "Your father would be ashamed." Cole sat across from him. "My father is dead. So is the man he built, apparently." "Good." Rourke's eyes hardened. "You think paper protects you?" "No," Cole said. "But it travels faster than bodies. It reaches banks, courts, insurers, federal desks, men who do not scare easily because they do not have to meet you in alleys." Frank placed a document in front of Rourke. "Your accounts are freezing. Your inspector is talking. Your watchdog friends are cutting statements faster than rats leaving a restaurant kitchen." Rourke did not look at Frank. He looked only at Cole. "You had a kingdom. I had a disease with a crown." And now Cole leaned forward slightly. "Now you have a choice. Walk away from Mercer. Projects dissolve every shell tied to my subcontractors, and spend the next decade trying to save what is left of your legitimate face." Rourke laughed. Or Cole's voice lowered. "Or Evelyn Harper testifies to every pattern she found my lawyers bury you in discovery, And the next time your name appears in print, it will be beside bank fraud, bribery, and conspiracy." For the first time, Rourke looked toward the closed barroom door, as if he could feel her there. Evelyn sat on the other side, hands clasped, listening through the low murmur of voices and the blood rushing in her ears. Rourke stood slowly. "You think love made you stronger?" Cole stood too. "No, love made me tired of being weak in the same old way." Rourke's face twisted. "This city remembers your father." Cole's answer came quiet. "Then it can learn my name properly." Rourke left without shaking his hand. No shots, no shouting, no broken glass, just a door closing and an empire losing air. When Cole stepped into the barroom, Evelyn stood. For a second, neither spoke. The Federal observers looked away with the studied politeness of men who had suddenly become fascinated by the wallpaper. Cole crossed the room. "It's done?" Evelyn asked. "Not done," he said, but turned. She nodded. That was enough. Frank appeared behind him, looking older than he had that morning. "Your father would have burned the city for less." Cole did not take his eyes off Evelyn. That is why he never owned anything worth keeping. Frank absorbed that, then gave a slow nod. Outside, rain streaked the windows. Chicago glittered below them, cold and restless, still full of men like Rourke, still full of ghosts like Arthur Mercer, still full of rooms where power wore a clean shirt and called itself respectable. Evelyn stepped closer to Cole. "You chose," she said. His face softened in a way only she could see. "No," he said. "I kept choosing. Every minute." She understood then. Change was not a door a person walked through once. It was a hallway full of old voices calling them back. Cole reached for her hand. This time, in front of Frank Keene, Federal observers, and the city beyond the glass, Evelyn took it. And when they walked out together, she did not feel like the woman beside a dangerous man. She felt like the woman who had made danger answer to the truth. The city did not change overnight. Chicago still woke under a gray sky, still hissed with buses and black cars and coffee carts steaming at corners. Men still made quiet calls from private offices. Reporters still chased blood beneath polished statements. Old money still smiled with one hand over its secrets. But inside Mercer Holdings, something had shifted. It began with silence. Not the frightened silence that followed Cole Mercer through ballrooms. Not the careful silence of men waiting for orders. This was the silence of people realizing the old rules had cracked, and no one knew what sound came next. For 3 weeks after the bellwether meeting, Cole worked from sunrise until long after the city lights turned cold against the windows. Lawyers came and went. Federal investigators asked polite questions with sharp edges. Banks froze accounts tied to Rourke's shells. Subcontractors suddenly remembered emails, meetings, favors, names. Silas Rourke did not vanish. Men like him rarely did. But his reach shortened. His money slowed. His friends stopped taking his calls in public. The old machinery of his power began to grind against sand. Evelyn had poured into the gears, one invoice at a time. Cole should have been relieved. Instead, Evelyn watched him become quieter. One evening, she found him alone in the penthouse greenhouse. Snow pressed against the glass roof, turning the world outside white and soundless. Cole stood beside the lemon tree, holding a pair of pruning shears he had not used. His suit jacket was gone. His sleeves were rolled. His face looked carved thin by decisions. Evelyn stepped inside and closed the door behind her. "You missed dinner," she said. "I know." That was not an apology. His mouth moved, but the smile did not reach. "I'm sorry." She walked toward him slowly. The greenhouse smelled of damp earth and rosemary. It had once seemed impossible to her, this secret garden above a city built on steel and suspicion. Now it felt like the only honest room in his life. What happened? Cole looked at the lemon tree. Keene finished the transfer documents. The monitored trusts. He nodded. And the divestments. Those two. Evelyn stood beside him. How much? Cole gave a quiet breath. Enough. Cole. His eyes stayed on the leaves. Hundreds of millions before it is finished. The number hung in the warm air, enormous and unreal. Evelyn did not gasp. She had seen the documents. She knew what old money looked like when it tried to wash itself clean. She also knew that every clean choice had a cost hidden somewhere in the columns. "Do you regret it?" she asked. Cole finally looked at her. Every signature. The answer struck her harder because it was honest. He set the pruning shears down. Some of those companies were rotten from the beginning. Some were not. Some fed families, paid pensions, built things this city needed. My father mixed poison into good soil, and now I have to burn fields just to be sure nothing grows crooked. Evelyn reached for a leaf and rubbed it gently between her fingers. Regret does not mean you chose wrong. No, he said. It means I understand what it costs. His voice was controlled, but Evelyn had learned the places where control thinned. She heard grief under it. Not grief for the money. Grief for the idea that he could cut away the past cleanly and leave no wound. She turned to him. You are allowed to mourn the life you are leaving, even if it was hurting you. Cole stared at her for a long moment. My father would have called that weakness. Your father is not in this room. Something moved through him, then painful and quiet. No, he said. He is not. The next morning, Cole signed the first round of transfers. Evelyn sat across the conference table, not beside him, not behind him. Across from him. Keene read each clause. Frank stood near the windows with his arms crossed, face unreadable. One document cut off the last freight routes tied to old Mercer muscle. Another placed risky construction assets under independent audit. Another dissolved 3 shell companies Arthur Mercer had buried beneath legitimate holdings so deep that even Cole had not understood their full purpose until Evelyn mapped them. Cole signed each page with the same steady hand. Only once did he pause. It was at a document tied to a waterfront property his mother had loved. Arthur had used it for meetings. Bad meetings. The kind nobody put in calendars. Cole stared at the address. Frank spoke from the window. She used to sit on the east balcony. Cole did not look up. I remember. Frank's voice roughened. She liked the gulls. She said they sounded like angry old women. Frank almost smiled. Then Cole signed. The pen moved across the page, and something old ended without ceremony. Afterward, Frank stayed behind. Evelyn gathered her papers slowly, pretending not to notice the 2 men standing in the wreckage of a kingdom only they fully remembered. Frank looked at Cole. You know some of the old guard will leave. They already have. Some will talk. Let them. Some will want blood for what you are giving away. Cole slipped the pen into his jacket pocket. They can stand in line behind the ghosts. Frank studied him for a long time. You really mean to live clean? Cole looked toward the greenhouse door. I mean to live awake. Frank nodded once. It was not approval exactly. It was surrender and maybe something close to pride. Evelyn expected life to become easier after that. It did not. Her name remained in articles for weeks. Some painted her as brave, some called her naive. A few made her sound like a schemer who had turned a powerful man against his own empire. She stopped reading them after a columnist referred to her as Cole Mercer's quiet little conscience. She threw her phone onto the couch so hard Milo leapt 3 feet into the air. Sorry, she told him. Milo glared from beneath the coffee table. Baines and Holt offered to reinstate her full access once the public narrative shifted. Graham Voss called it a misunderstanding. Evelyn sat across from him in his glass office, listening to him talk in polished circles. "We value your work tremendously," Graham said. "That is interesting." He smiled weakly. "We were in a complicated position. I was in a complicated position. You were in an office." His smile disappeared. "We would like you back on the Kessler account." Evelyn looked through the glass wall at the rows of desks outside. For years, she had wanted to be seen in that room, wanted someone to notice the late nights, the clean reports, the errors caught before they became disasters. Now they noticed. Only now she could see the cost of begging for recognition from people who offered respect only when embarrassment required it. "No," she said. Graham blinked. "No, I am resigning." He leaned back. "Evelyn, I would advise you not to make an emotional decision." She laughed once, softly. "Graham, I have never made an emotional decision in this office." That was the problem. She left the building with one box. It contained 2 mugs, a framed photo of Milo, a cardigan, 3 notebooks, and a stapler Tessa insisted she take, because in her words, it had survived too much to stay behind. On the sidewalk, Tessa hugged her hard. "You're really doing it," Tessa said. "I'm really unemployed. You're really free." "That is a generous interpretation." Tessa pulled back. "You'll start something better." Evelyn looked at the box in her arms, then at the towers of downtown rising above her. For the first time, uncertainty did not feel like failure. It felt like space. Her new office was on the 2nd floor of an old building above a print shop in Ravenswood. The floors creaked. The radiator clanged like it was haunted by union workers. The windows stuck. The sign on the door was "Temporary," printed on heavy paper and taped carefully behind the glass. Harper Forensic Accounting, Fraud Detection, Financial Review, Small Business Support. The first morning she unlocked the door, she stood in the empty room and listened to the hum of the building. There were no employees yet, no fancy chairs, no conference table, just a rented desk, a used coffee machine, a folding chair, and sunlight falling across worn wood floors. Cole arrived 20 minutes later, carrying a lemon tree. Evelyn stared at him. "No." He stopped in the doorway. That was fast. "You are not buying my office furniture. It is not furniture. It is tall, expensive, and unnecessary. That qualifies. It is a plant. It is a Mercer plant. I can feel the tax implications." Cole looked around the room, taking in the bare walls, the cheap blinds, the coffee machine already making a sound like a dying boat. "I thought it might like the window." Evelyn tried to hold her ground. Failed around the edges. "You brought me a tree." "Yes." "From your greenhouse." "Yes." "Why?" He set it carefully near the window where the morning light touched its leaves. "Because things should grow here." That silenced her. She looked away, blinking once. "You're getting dangerously sincere. I have been warned." She walked over and adjusted the pot by 1 inch because feelings were easier to manage through alignment. "Fine," she said. "It can stay." Cole smiled. "Generous. But I am not naming it after you. I would not ask. I'm naming it Meatloaf." His smile deepened. "That seems fair." The office grew slowly. A bakery owner came first, convinced her bookkeeper was stealing. Evelyn found the theft in 3 days, hidden inside refund adjustments. Then a neighborhood nonprofit came with missing grant funds. Then a family hardware store whose numbers did not match its inventory. Each case was smaller than the Rourke network, but none felt small to the people sitting across from her with worry in their hands. Evelyn liked that. She liked helping people understand the thing that had scared them. She liked turning panic into paper, into patterns, and patterns into choices. Cole visited rarely and never without asking. That mattered more than flowers. Sometimes he came after hours with takeout and sat on the floor while Evelyn worked at her desk. He read reports from his own companies while she traced missing funds for clients who paid in installments and gratitude. They did not always talk. They did not need to. One night, Evelyn looked up and caught him watching her. What Cole closed the folder in his lap. "You look different here. Worse. Because this lighting is rude." "No, yours." She understood what he meant. The room was hers. The work was hers. The risk was hers. The life opening in front of her had her own name on the door. She smiled faintly. "I am still scared most of the time." "I know, but not smaller." "No," he said, "not smaller." Months passed. Rourke's organization continued to fracture under investigations and lawsuits. Cole's legitimate companies survived, though leaner, and watched more closely. He made enemies by refusing old favors. He lost allies who preferred him dangerous. He gained others who trusted the version of power that could stand in daylight. Frank remained. He complained often. He called Cole's legal team bloodless vampires with briefcases. He called Evelyn terrifying in sensible shoes. He once brought her coffee and pretended it had been left in his car by mistake. Evelyn accepted it without comment. Ruth took longer to settle. She visited Evelyn's new office on a Thursday afternoon wearing a tan coat and carrying a casserole, as if business ownership could be supported by baked pasta. The moment she saw the sign on the door, her eyes filled. "Oh, Evie. Mom don't cry in the hallway. The print shop guy already thinks I'm dramatic." Ruth touched the letters on the glass. "Your father would have been proud." Evelyn's throat tightened. Her father had died when she was 19, quietly and too early, leaving behind insurance forms Ruth could not understand, and hospital bills Evelyn had learned to organize before she learned how to grieve. "I hope so," Evelyn said. Ruth turned to her. "I was hard on you." Evelyn leaned against the doorframe. "You were scared for me. I was also wrong sometimes." That was the closest Ruth had ever come to opening a locked door between them. Evelyn let the silence honor it. Then Ruth glanced at the lemon tree by the window. "Is that from Cole?" "Yes." "It's nice. Do not sound that surprised." Ruth gave her a look. "I am trying." Evelyn smiled. "I know. Madison changed too, though she pretended not to. Her engagement ended in spring, quietly but decisively. She called Evelyn from a hotel room in Nashville, voice hoarse, saying she had taken off the ring and eaten room service fries in bed like a fugitive. "I don't know who I am without everyone approving," Madison admitted. Evelyn sat on her office floor beside Meatloaf the lemon tree and listened. "You can start with hungry," Evelyn said. Madison laughed through tears. "That is very profound. It's very practical. Order dessert, too." By summer, Madison came to work part-time for Evelyn, handling client intake and social media with terrifying competence. She made the office look better in 2 weeks than Evelyn had managed in 4 months. "I hate how useful you are," Evelyn told her. "I know," Madison said. "It's my burden." The proposal came in early fall. Cole did not choose a yacht, a rooftop, or a room full of people waiting to clap. He knew her better than that. He brought her back to the Belmont mansion on a quiet Monday evening after the property had closed to guests. The engagement that had begun the whole story was long over. Madison had given permission for them to walk through before the building changed ownership. The ballroom stood empty. No chandeliers blazing, no violins, no women whispering behind champagne glasses, just moonlight spilling across polished floors and dust turning slowly in the air. Evelyn stood in the hallway where she had crashed into him. "This is cruel," she said softly. Cole looked down at her. This is where I publicly committed beverage assault. This is where you improved my evening." She shook her head, but her smile was already there. They walked into the ballroom. Their footsteps echoed. Evelyn remembered the borrowed blue dress, the cold glass in her hand, the awful silence after the spill. She remembered feeling like she had ruined everything. Now the room looked smaller. Or maybe she had grown. Cole stopped near the center of the floor. "I thought I knew what power was before you," he said. Evelyn turned. "Cole, let me say it badly first, then you can correct the structure." That made her laugh, but her eyes had already begun to sting. He took her hand. "I thought power was control. Who entered a room? Who left it? Who owed money? Who owed fear? I was good at that. Too good." His thumb moved over her knuckles. "Then you spilled champagne on me and apologized like my suit mattered more than my name. You looked at me like I was a man before you knew I was a warning." Evelyn's breath caught. Cole lowered himself to one knee. The ring he held was simple, elegant. Not a weapon of wealth, a promise small enough to wear every day. "I do not want to own another room you are in," he said. "I want to deserve a place beside you. Evelyn Harper, will you marry me?" For a moment she could not speak. Then she wiped at one eye and gave him a trembling look. That was dangerously close to emotionally healthy. "I practiced. It shows." He waited, still kneeling, vulnerable in a way the old Cole Mercer would never have allowed. Evelyn stepped closer. "Yes." The word left her softly, but it filled the empty ballroom. Cole exhaled like a man who had been holding his breath for years. She held out her hand as he slid the ring on. "But if you ever send a car to my job without asking again, I will pawn this. Understood? And if you try to buy my office building as a romantic gesture, I will raise your rent. Also understood." He stood laughing quietly and kissed her in the room where fear had first mistaken itself for fate. Their wedding was small. Ruth cried before the ceremony started. Madison fixed Evelyn's veil with the serious concentration of a surgeon. Frank stood at the back of the garden in a dark suit, looking personally offended by the amount of flowers. The ceremony took place outside a restored farmhouse near Lake Forest, under a soft white sky. No reporters, no politicians, no men pretending old crimes were just business. Only family, a few trusted friends, and the kind of quiet that did not require fear to maintain it. When Evelyn walked toward Cole, he looked at her as if every violent thing he had survived had led him to a place where he could finally put down the weapon. Madison gave the toast. "My cousin spent most of her life trying not to take up too much space," she said, lifting her glass. "Then she met a man who owned too much of it. Somehow they taught each other balance." Frank muttered, "That was almost good." Evelyn heard him and smiled. Later, after the music softened and the guests drifted into clusters beneath string lights, Cole found Evelyn near the greenhouse behind the farmhouse. It was smaller than the one in his penthouse, built of old glass and cedar warm with herbs and young tomato plants. "You disappeared," he said. "I am allowed. It is my wedding." "Our wedding. I am considering the accounting." He came to stand beside her. Beyond the glass, the fields rolled dark under the evening sky. Chicago was still visible only as a distant glow far enough to feel like another life and close enough to remember. "Do you miss it?" Evelyn asked. "The city? The empire?" Cole looked out across the quiet land. "Sometimes." She appreciated that he did not lie. What part? Knowing every answer before anyone asked. Being obeyed quickly. Never wondering if I was safe because everyone else was busy being afraid. Evelyn slid her hand into his. "And now," he looked at their joined hands, "now I wonder. But I sleep." Years moved gently after that, though not perfectly. Cole built legal agriculture programs and invested in urban food projects that hired people from neighborhoods his father had once exploited. Evelyn expanded Harper Forensic Accounting into a respected firm with 12 employees, none of whom were allowed to use the phrase reputational complication unless they wanted her to stare at them until they apologized. They fought sometimes, about security, about overwork, about Cole's instinct to solve and Evelyn's instinct to endure. But their fights no longer became cages. They became doors difficult ones opened with effort. When their daughter was born, they named her June, not after anyone powerful, not after a family legacy. Just June because she arrived early in the morning with the sun coming through the hospital blinds and Cole crying so openly that Ruth had to hand him tissues twice. Years later, on a bright spring afternoon, Evelyn stood in the farmhouse greenhouse while June ran between rows of tomato plants in yellow rain boots. Cole knelt in the soil, trying to teach her how to water seedlings. "Not too much," he said. June tipped the little can too far, flooding one pot. Cole stared at the drowning basil. Evelyn covered her smile. June looked up at him with serious eyes. "Did I kill it?" Cole considered the plant. "It may be negotiating with death. Mommy can fix numbers. Can she fix plants?" "Mommy can fix most things," Cole said. Evelyn leaned against the doorframe. "That is dangerously inaccurate." June ran to her and wrapped both arms around her leg. "Mommy, did you really throw champagne at Daddy?" Evelyn looked over June's head at Cole. "Accidentally." Cole stood brushing soil from his hands. "Historically." "Was he mad?" June asked. Evelyn touched her daughter's hair. "No, he was confused." Cole walked toward them, terrified. Evelyn laughed. "You were not terrified." Cole looked at her with the same dark eyes that had once stopped a ballroom, only now they held sunlight soil and years of choosing differently. "I was," he said. "I just did not understand why yet." June lost interest and ran back to the seedlings. Cole came to stand beside Evelyn. For a while, they watched their daughter water the plants with more enthusiasm than precision. Outside the greenhouse, wind moved through the trees. Somewhere far away, the city went on being hungry, glittering, dangerous, alive. But here the air smelled of basil and tomato leaves. Here Cole Mercer had dirt on his shirt and a flower sticker on his wrist because June had put it there and declared him fancy. Here, Evelyn no longer had to shrink to be safe. Cole glanced at her. "What nothing? That has never meant nothing. Has never—" She looked at the lemon tree in the corner, older now, stronger, its branches full of green fruit not yet ready to ripen. "I was checking the math." And Evelyn slipped her hand into his. "Somehow she said it balances." Cole squeezed her hand. June turned around, holding up the watering can like a trophy. "Daddy, come help. The plants are thirsty." Cole looked at Evelyn one last time before going to their daughter. The man who had once inherited fear now knelt in warm soil and taught a child how to keep fragile things alive. Evelyn watched them through the golden afternoon light, and the old story finally released her. She had not disappeared into his world. He had walked out of it with her.